Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We got a few people still straggling in here, but we'll go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be demonstrating how you can use Articulate's Studio product to develop your very own safety training module. And then at the end here, we're going to cover how you can import that module into a learning management system so you can assign it to employees and record and report on the completion status of that training. This webinar is actually a condensed version of a longer article that we wrote on the subject and published to our blog. So we'll follow up with a link to that post as well as a link to the recording of this webinar after we're finished here today. We'll also leave about 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A, so while we're going through today, if any questions pop up, feel free to put them into the chat and we'll get to those at the end. So again, this is a webinar about how to use Articulate Studio to create custom safety training. I'm JP Dull, Marketing Manager here at Convergence Training, and today I'm joined by Jeff Dalto, Senior Customer Success Specialist at Convergence Training, where he has also served as a writer, content developer, and customer trainer. He has over 20 years of instructional design experience, and today he's going to be leading us through the nuts and bolts of creating our e-learning module. First, I want to go over a couple things really quick. There's different methods of training, as I'm sure you're aware. If you're an EHS manager, a training manager, an HR manager, if you're administering training in any capacity, you have a number of ways to deliver that training. Many of you probably do classroom-based, presentation-based training where you're delivering a PowerPoint presentation or maybe screening a DVD to a class. Hands-on training is also important and common. And it can be combined and assessed with task-based skills demonstrations or quizzes or over-the-shoulder skills assessments. And increasingly, people are delivering training online or through a learning management system in a computer-based or e-learning format. I'm sure most of you are familiar with all of these methods, and I imagine you probably use a combination of one or two or maybe all of them in your training programs. Today, I want to talk about a blended approach to training. At Convergence Training, we believe there's a time and a place where each of these training methods is most appropriate and can have the greatest impact. E-learning in particular has the advantage of being able to be delivered remotely, and it's also really easy to measure and track. So if one of the goals of your training program is to be able to provide a standardized training and be able to easily run compliance reports and figure out who's up to date on their training and who's not, and LMS and e-learning courses are tailor-made for providing that information. There's some great e-learning content already out there, off-the-shelf training, especially for safety and compliance. We make a lot of it. It's good stuff. You can see some of it here. But even though there's a lot of great stuff out there, you're not always going to find stuff off the shelf that meets your needs. Maybe you have specific procedures, policies at your facility that just isn't going to be covered by off-the-shelf e-learning, and in those cases you're going to want to create your own. So that's what we're going to talk about here today, is how you can create your very own e-learning training content using some of the inexpensive and user-friendly authoring tools like Articulate Studio. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Jeff, who is going to show us how to create our custom safety training with Articulate Studio. Jeff?
All right, thank you very much, JP, and hi. JP, before I start, can I just confirm a couple technical settings? Am I correct? You can hear my voice?
I can hear your voice.
All right, and I want to make sure you see the monitor I want you to see. Are we looking at the right monitor now?
We are.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, JP. And at that point, hi to everybody out there. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to come and listen in here. So our goal is to teach you how to make your own e-learning course using a product called Articulate Studio. What we're going to do is give you an overview. We're going to show some, demonstrate some of the key features. As JP mentioned, we have a more detailed blog post that shows you this material again. The Articulate website is a fantastic resource that has a lot more detailed information. But we're going to aim to show you some pretty ground level nuts and bolts that you can use to create your own e-learning course, and it'll be a pretty cool course when you get done. But know that once you get to that point, there's a lot more to learn and a lot more to do, and you'll be able to continue to grow with that tool for literally for years. as I'm still learning how to use it myself, and as they add new features and so on. So with that said, let's start the story by going to the end. If our goal is to teach you today how to use Articulate Studio to create your own e-learning course, put it inside of a learning management system, and then assign that course to your workers, let's go to the end of the pipe, if you will, and look at that from the learner perspective. So what I have here on screen is a software system called a Learning Management System, or LMS. Now, I know for a fact we have some existing customers out there on the webinar. Hello to you people who I've probably met in the past. And you probably know exactly what we're looking at right now, the Enterprise LMS and the Training tab. Other people who might be listening in who are not customers of ours, or maybe have never even heard of a learning management system, let me just tell you what LMS is really quickly. It's a software application that can be installed on your network at work or hosted on the internet, as this one is, and then you can use it as a training manager to import or create training materials, to assign it to your workforce, to deliver it to them online. In some cases, your learners will be able to view and complete the training online. We'll see that in just a moment. Other cases, they might see something representing that they have to do something in a classroom setting or out in the field. And then you can store records about who's done and not done with training, and you can run reports about who's done and not done with training and how well people did when they were taking their training. So bird's eye view, that's what an LMS is. What I just said is true of all or most all LMSs, although we happen to be using one from Convergence today. So all that said, I'm logged in here to a learning management system as a person named Jeff Dalto, and I can see training that's been assigned to me. I'm on a tab called Training, and I see that I have to complete a course called Crane Hand Signals. This is what you're going to learn. I'm going to teach you how I created this in just a moment. But again, so my learner sees that he or she has been assigned this. They see they're currently incomplete. They see there's 15 minutes left, or it should take 15 minutes. So I'm going to hit this launch button here. And in this case, this is training your learner can complete online. And so this e-learning course is going to open up. And you'll see here on the left, I've got a little menu. I'll refer to that later. The menu's here on the left. And my course is going to advance. I'm just not doing anything. It's advancing on its own. There's audio narration, which we've muted, so you don't have to hear that while I'm talking as well. And so this is kind of standard. And now it's telling me to get ready to review some Crane hand signals. And really, that's what I want to call out right here. Here we are on screen 5. You notice it quit advancing. The first thing I want to call out to you is we have this thing that looks kind of like a slideshow. And if I hit the images on the bottom with my mouse, the image and material on the top changes. So if I click this one, I see that we've got the stop hand signal. Here's my description, and here's an image. And the learner can move through this. They can move in random order if they want, and so on. So I constructed this using Studio, and you're going to learn how I did this in just a bit. Now, the next thing I want to call to your attention is this quiz here in a menu on screen 7. And again, I constructed this quiz in Studio. You're going to learn how to do it in a second. What does this hand signal mean? Here's a hand signal. We'll click an answer and submit. And see, now we're told if we were right or wrong, and feedback based on whether or not we were right or wrong. Again, not only did I create the quiz, I wrote this feedback for my learners, and you'll learn how to do this as well. And they can bounce through this. I got one right, one wrong, and so on. So obviously, your learner would complete this entire course, including taking the quiz. I'm going to hit exit here. And this course is going to close. It's going to return me to my learning management system, to the screen where I see my assigned training. And my status, which started off as incomplete, is going to shift to in progress. And in the future, had I completed it, that would change to, say, complete. And then someone like JP, maybe my training manager, could run a report to see if I'm done or not done. All right, so if that's the end of the story, now let's go to the beginning. How did I make this happen? And what I did is I started with 3 things. First thing I started with is a PowerPoint. And here's my PowerPoint here. It's got 7 screens in it. This is nothing complicated, nothing that you can't or don't currently do at work on your own. And so I guess if there's anything complicated, it's that it looks arguably nice. It has a consistent look and feel, and that's credit to JP. My graphic design skills are limited. He created this for me. But if you're like me, let's start again. If you're like JP and you're a wonderful graphic designer, good on you. But if you're more like me, don't worry. One of the many things that Articulate offers to their customers is a whole host of templates, so you can have aesthetically pleasing and consistent looking e-learning courses. So you won't have to be a graphics whiz like JP in order to make something that looks nice like this. So the other thing that I started with was a series of black and white images, each image representing one of these crane hand signals. Now I got these images from an OSHA document. I copied them and created an image for each one. A word about copyright. OSHA materials are public domain, so it's okay for me to do that. And then we didn't sell this anyway. However, keep in mind that the internet should not be treated like the Wild West. I know there are a lot of images out there, but remember this: many of them are copyrighted, and you can't just take anything. Now we do have a little outlier here. Here's a color photograph of a man waving hello. I put that here intentionally because it sticks out nicely. We're going to use this in our demonstration in just a little bit. And then the last thing, obviously, I had was this product we keep talking about, Articulate Studio. It's a type of product called an e-learning authoring tool. There are lots of them on the market. Articulate makes two. But we're going to show you how to use Studio. And when you buy Studio, you get 4 components, as you're seeing here on the screen. The first is Presenter. And you can think of this almost as a plug-in or an add-on to PowerPoint. And we'll show you that in more detail briefly. Over here on the left is something called Engage. What Engage is they have pre-formatted interactive elements, maybe 20 or 25, things like the slideshow that I just showed you, and there are others, FAQs and glossaries and the like. And you take their pre-canned interactive elements and you put your content into it. You can put your pictures into it and your words, as again you saw with my slideshow. So that's what Engage does. And then, as you probably guessed, QuizMaker is what the tool you use to make a quiz within this product suite. We do also have this tool here, Replay. It's a cool thing. It's used for webcasts. It's beyond the scope of today's training or webinar, but maybe we'll cover this in a future one. So that's the 3 things I had. I had my PowerPoint, I had my images, and I had Articulate Studio. So let's go to that PowerPoint. And here we are. And you see I've got a 7-screen PowerPoint, nothing complicated. But what I do have that maybe you don't have in your version of PowerPoint is a menu right here called Articulate. So here's my normal PowerPoint menus, and suddenly I've got a new menu here. When you buy Studio, it just automatically pops this new menu into your version of PowerPoint. So I'm going to walk you through, I think they call this a ribbon here at the top, and give you an idea of some of the things you can do with Articulate Presenter. So the first thing you can do is you can record narration. So if I want to have these some audio narration accompany these screens or different screen elements, I can do that. And I'll give you a tip. I just learned this last week from a customer who is struggling with this. If you are going to have audio narration in your own self-created e-learning course, add it here from the Articulate menu and hitting this button. Don't add it in PowerPoint. You can end up with unanticipated problems. So there's a little tip. Next, add annotations. I could add things like green check marks, red X's, or squares that appear on my screen at a certain time, and I can actually sync that with my audio. So that's a kind of cool feature. Quizzes and interactions. We've already touched on this, and we're going to focus on this for much of the webinar. So I'll hold on these for a second. Characters. They actually have lifelike characters that you can introduce to your screen and then resize. And if I click this button here, you'll see they have what they call illustrated characters, meaning cartoony, or photographic, literally lifelike photo representational people. And you can select, I think they have maybe 10 illustrated characters and 10 photographic of different genders and ethnicities. And once you say, I want this person, you can specify a certain body pose, a certain facial expression. You put them on your screen, and then you can just click and drag them to resize them to the appropriate size that you need. So that's a pretty cool feature. You can add videos, you can add flash animations, and you can add web objects or things for the internet. Now, there's more stuff here on the right, and we're going to return and look at this stuff a little bit later. So we mentioned we're going to focus on this quiz and this interaction, so that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to bounce through my little PowerPoint here and advance until I find a screen that's telling my learners, hey, get ready to review some hand signals. So that's screen 4. And so that's signaling my learner, you're about to get a chance to review hand signals. And they're going to review those hand signals by looking at that slideshow I had created. So I did that in Engage Interaction. Let's click Engage here. All right, and that's nice and quick. And it's going to give me an option to create a brand new interaction or add an existing one. And at some point in the past, I did create a brand new interaction for that slideshow. But I already have it existing, so we'll say Add Existing. And it's going to give me a list of interactions I've created. And right here at the top, the one I worked with most recently is creating hand signals, so that's convenient. You see I use this a lot. And in just a second, this little status bar will fill up and close. And next it's going to allow me to set some properties, and we'll see those in just a moment. Personally, to be honest, I find it easy to forget sometimes and overlook, so keep your eyes on these. All right, so here's a couple properties I can set. In the menu within the eLearning course for your learner, do you want to show this interaction as multiple items, one item per screen, or as a single item, one item per slideshow? I like that single item option here. When can the user leave this interaction? At any time or only after they've viewed everything? There might be times you want to force them to see everything. I'm okay if they at any time. And then what happens when they hit the previous and next buttons? And we'll say they go to the next step interaction. Okay, great. So now I'm going to edit this Engage interaction, kind of show you inside of it and show you how I created it. And this can take a moment. The program in the background is you can see it just embedded a little placeholder screen in my PowerPoint to represent this interaction. And then it's going to fire up this additional program. Here it goes, Engage in the background. And all right, over there. So you see I've got, over here on the left, I have 19 what they call steps in this case. And each step represents a hand signal, stop, emergency stop, hoist, and so on. If I go up to stop, now I can see where I enter the name of the hand signal, I entered a description, and I entered an image for that hand signal. So I guess the next question is how did I do that? And I'll show you that in just a moment. I do want to show you a couple higher level things first. So I'm going to go up to this Interaction Properties button here and show you a couple features you can apply to this entire slideshow. The first is the method in which it plays back. I have defaulted to allow my learner to be interactive. They can advance in any order. And you probably know in general that's considered a nice thing to allow learners to make their own decisions and be self-guided. You could force a linear order, and there might be reasons why you want people to go through something in exact order. Or you could say you want the presentation to advance itself, each screen advancing after a certain amount of time. But I like that advance order, at least for this material. This button here, Colors and Effects. I mentioned Articulate offers a lot of things to help you make your materials look nicer. They have nice templates. They also have color themes here, so you can see there's a whole bunch of color themes. You can even create your own. So again, don't panic if like me, you're not the world's greatest artist. I also have sound effect options that will create sound effects when people click their mouse or hover their mouse. And to be honest, in most cases, I find them annoying. I think maybe they could be relevant sometimes. But, you know, to each their own. So you do have some options here that you can choose. And again, there's a spell check feature here. So that's handy as well. All right, so if I've got 19 of these steps, let's add a 20th step and see how we did it. So up here on the left, there's an Add Step button. And I'm going to hit that Add Step button. And it's going to let me add a new step, as you probably guessed. Now, we also have that color photograph I have of a man waving hello. So that's going to be my crane hand signal. Obviously, it's not a crane hand signal, but it does fit my demonstration nicely. All right, so I've named it. I've described it, and over here I can add what they call media. And the media I want to add is a picture, so I'm going to click this button. Puts me right in the folder of images of hand signals, and here's our guy waving hello. All right. And then I obviously did that 19 more times, and that's how I created the slideshow. I want to show you this preview button here. Before I save this and put it into my presentation and then do more work and only to find I made an error, I have an opportunity to preview this. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to preview from the beginning. And this can take a second.
Jeff, you're showing us the slideshow here. Can you take a minute just to show us some of the other interactions?
Yeah, that's a good question, JP, with kind of a two-part answer. Let me bounce over to their website. That'll give us time for this preview to complete. Here's a tab. Okay, so they have 20 or 25 of these pre-formatted interactions. Here's a bulletin board with little Post-its, and you click on a Post-it and you see something. Here's an accordion style thing where information on screen is being revealed and hidden. A checklist, you check an item on screen and you see information. You're adding images, you're adding text. How to explain representations or relationships, I'm sorry. Here's a simulated online Q&A, and here's a FAQ. We do this a lot on our blog. And there's 20 or 25 more. Here's a glossary. We have glossaries on our blog and so on. So in addition to the stuff from Articulate, they have a great user community, and people actually will create new ones, make them available for people like me and people like our audience out there, and you can download these new ones, user-created ones in addition. So there's a lot of offerings there. JP, I'm getting a message here that I might be experiencing some network difficulty. Are you still hearing me fine?
I am. There's just a little bit of you breaking up in a couple points, but you're pretty clear right now.
All right, good. Thank you. Okay, so here's my preview. It previewed while I was off on the other screen. And you see here's my little slideshow. I can bounce around and see the images. Here's our guy who's waving hi. Here's a hand signal for hello. So if I was building this for the Convergence Training blog, or if somebody out there was building it for their employees, this is a great opportunity to really look closely, make sure you put everything in the right place. I'm not going to look closely for today for purpose of our webinar. We see it work, so I'll hit close. And next I want to hit this save and return to presenter button. So I'll do that. And it's going to take this interaction, including this new addition I just added. It's going to save that and return back to presenter, Articulate Presenter within PowerPoint. And we see I'm here already, and there's a little placeholder for my crane hand signals, the properties I said earlier, and so on. So really that's all there is to creating and adding an engaged interaction. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a quiz. So I'm going to advance to the next screen, telling my learners to get ready to quiz themselves. And I'm going to hit the quiz maker button in the same way we did with engage earlier. And again, I have the option to create a brand new quiz or add an existing one. We'll add an existing quiz this time. Here's my crane hand signal quiz, easy enough. And to go through the same process earlier, the status bar will fill in. Underneath the status bar, I have a ability to set some preferences, and we'll show you those in just a moment. These are, I think, particularly in the quiz preferences, and that'll take just a second if you guys will bear with the program while it completes. All right. So here are the properties. And it's kind of neat. When the user passes this quiz, and we'll talk more about what it means to pass in a little bit, what happens? Do they go to the next slide, or do they go to other slides within the presentation? So we're going to go the easy route and say go to the next slide, but you can start saying like, well, if they pass, they go to screen 2, and then later you'll see that if they fail, they can go to screen 5 or something. So you can start creating branching within your e-learning course, and you'll have different learning paths for different learners based on how they do on their quiz and how they do in other parts of the course as well. So this is a pretty cool feature, and again, when I said we're going to show you the nuts and bolts simple level, this ability to branch and create alternate learning paths is the next level up. What happens if a user fails? So that's the flip side of the coin. Again, we're going to stick with goes to the next slide, but you could force them to go back to the beginning of a course, or force them to go to some custom screen just for people who have failed the quiz. When is a user allowed to leave the quiz? And I've said only after they've completed it, but you could let them leave any time. But my goal is to test them. How do I want them to be able to view the slides after they completed the quiz? And yeah, I'm good with that, but you could lock that down. And then within the menu we saw earlier within the e-learning course itself, should this quiz display as multiple items, one item per question, or as a single item, one item per quiz? I like that second option almost every time, especially in this case. Okay, and now I'm going to hit the Edit Quiz button here. And just as we did earlier with Engage, I'm going to show you this constructed quiz, and then I'll show you how I constructed it. We'll add a question to it in just a second, and we'll talk about some of the interesting features that the program lets you do on a quiz level, if you will, and also on a question level. So QuizMaker is firing up, the third of the 4 components of Articulate Studio. And here we go. You see I've got a bunch of numbered rows here. Each of these rows, numbered rows, represents a question. It looks like I have 19 questions total. And I'm going to click on one of these questions to show you how I constructed it, what the elements are. All right. And you see this tab here opens. This is my question as opposed to over here where my list of questions. And once you have a question open, you can use these buttons here to view the same information in 2 different views. And I just prefer Form View, so I'm going to click Form View. It's more intuitive to me. Here's where I enter the question stem. What does this hand signal mean? Here's an image that I've included, and I included that image right here. We'll show you that in a little bit. Here are answer choices, so my learner can choose from different answer choices, and these are all choices here are real live or real world hand signals. I didn't make up any gibberish or anything, out of left field. And down here I have feedback options for my learner based on whether or not they got the answer correct or incorrect. And I set that custom for each question in here. And I also have a post-quiz review option. So if somebody's taken the whole quiz and then they want to review all the questions, they can see a message about each of the questions. So that's fantastic. We're going to build a question in a second. You'll see how to do all this. I'm going to close this. And before we build a question, I'm going to just show you a couple of the features up here at the top. First of all, the ability to add questions or different question types: graded, survey, freeform. We're going to add a graded question. We'll show you more detail about that in a little bit. Here's a cool feature where you can import questions. So if you have like a Excel spreadsheet, you can fill in questions in a format that Articulate wants, and then import that spreadsheet, and it'll automate this process for you. So if you have a subject matter expert who knows how to use Excel but doesn't want to learn this product, you can just have them fill something out in a spreadsheet, and then you can import that. So that's very handy. Randomized group. Here's a group of questions here, and I can have these questions appear in random order to my learners, or I can turn that off. I think in most cases you'll want them randomized. I also have the ability here to create what I call a test bank. Maybe I'll create 20 questions, or in this case 18, and I'll say 10 or something like that. And I want all of them. And if I am doing a test bank, I can still say I want to lock a certain question so that even if I'm doing only X out of Y, question 3, for example, will always appear. Finally, I want to call out this quiz properties button here really quickly. You can set a passing score. So my learners will be, the course will determine if the learner has passed his quiz or failed it based on the passing score that I set. So I could change 90 to 80. And over here in question defaults, I can set how many attempts am I going to allow my learner for each question before they're automatically moved on to the next question. I've got 1, but you can go to unlimited or any number. All right. So here we're back at our question list. Let me show you how I added a question. I'm going to click this graded question button here. And it's going to give me a bunch of these different graded questions that I can choose from. True and false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. Here's a matching. You drag screen elements to match them. Here's where you're dragging things to put them in order, maybe from top to bottom or first to last. Another one called hotspot, where maybe you put in your own picture, and then the learner has to click in the right part of a picture. Maybe you're doing, identify the correct part of the machine or something like that. But we're going to add a multiple choice question old standard. We'll hit insert. And now it's going to let me build my question. We're in that form view that I personally like. And I'm going to go with the what is this hand signal question. I'm going to go up here and add some media, and I will add a picture from a file. And here's our waving guy in color. Boom, here he is. Now I'm going to click in some answer choices. And now, obviously, none of these are crane hand signals. So high is the right answer. I'm going to put that first. I don't have to worry about if I have a tendency to have always have the right answer first, because you can randomize these, which is a nice feature, and I'll show you in just a second. And again, these are not the greatest incorrect answers. If you check our blog or check the internet, there's all sorts of resources about how to create effective assessments that are actually valid of learning. Here I'm going to click the radio button to say, yeah, this is the right answer. That is clearly the signal for high. Here's where I could add that feedback option I talked about earlier for learners who get correct or incorrect answers, and I can write this custom. I'm not going to take the time to do that. The post-quiz review I mentioned as well. Again, I could write this custom also. I'll spare you that. I do want to call out the ability to change feedback. Are you going to give learners question feedback down here for the question, or based on every answer choice? So I could write a feedback for B and a feedback for C and a feedback for D, but we're going to go with just by question. And then here are these answer choices. I can ask these to be shuffled, and that's what I like. I like to shuffle these, so I can always write, the correct answer is A, and it'll shuffle them for me for my learner each time. And a lot of us have a tendency to always have the right answer be A, or always have it be C or something. So that reduces your concern about that. So fantastic. I've added this question. You see it here in my question list. I'm going to close this. And at this point, as we previewed the Engage interaction, we can also preview our quiz. So we'll do a quick preview here. And this could take a little moment as well.
Jeff, if you have a moment, can you go over some of the other question types, like the freeform question?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm added a graded question, and I think there were 10 or 12 of those. But they also have survey questions, and as JP was just saying, freeform questions. Let me bounce back over to their website while our preview is constructing. And I've got information about their QuizMaker tool here. So, so for those survey questions, they're not graded, and they're things like rate your enjoyment of this class on a scale of 1 to 5, or how much do you agree with this statement, with 1 being I agree very strongly, and 5 being I don't agree at all, or something like that. But they also have the ability to add what JP is referring to as freeform questions. Here we're seeing the ability to select an image which represents some kind of document, or in this case an award, and drag it into a folder. So you're kind of answering the person or testing them by having them drag things on screen. Here's another example here where there are images representing different actions that your learner would have to perform. And those actions, if I can read this: tweak your goals, submit your report to HR, send the employee a thank you, send a summary to the employee's team, or add a follow-up to your calendar. So presumably what's going on in this e-learning course is the person's being taught a procedure, or they're being tested a procedure in some kind of scenario-based learning. And on this screen, which is a knowledge check, they're probably being asked, well, what would you do next? And I don't know what next would be. Maybe it's add a reminder to your calendar. But so obviously the e-learning designer has added these images, which are their own, and programmed, what happens when I hit 25, or the calendar, I'm sorry, as opposed to the post-it. So that's a way to assess people outside of the kind of more narrow confines of multiple choice or true-false. All right, let me bounce back to our presentation, and here's our preview. There we go. That's what we were doing. And here's my question stem, my image, and I have answer choices, and I could submit. So now I can see the learner experience, and that I'm getting my feedback I told you about. And here's my feedback again. I got that one wrong. And again, I would do this much more closely and carefully if I was putting it on the blog, and you would do that more closely too if you're doing it for your employees. But I'm going to go ahead. We get the point that it works. I'm going to close this preview. And in the same way that I saved my newly changed engage interaction before, I'm going to save this newly changed quiz now. I'll hit the save and return to presenter. And at this point, it'll save my changes. It's going to close the quiz maker tool. It's going to open up presenter, which again is that thing that appears right in the menu of PowerPoint. And I'll see that placeholder that represents the fact that I now have a quiz inside my what started off as a simple PowerPoint. And here we are. And again, now I've got 9 slides. I started with 7. The first placeholder here represents that Engage Interaction slideshow. Here's a placeholder here to represent my quiz. And we're basically ready to start making an e-learning course now. We've added interaction. We've added a quiz. We could do more, as I've mentioned earlier, but we're at the point where we could add, basically do what I need to do to make an e-learning course. I'm going to hit, I told you earlier we'd get back to these buttons here. I just want to quickly show you the slide properties button. We're not going to make any changes on the screen, but I want to let you know you can. I mentioned earlier the ability to branch, and we have simple branching where hitting the previous button goes to the previous screen, hitting the next button goes to the next screen. But again, you could create learning paths by having these branch off to different screens. So that's a kind of nice feature to know about. Player, I want to show you this player button quickly as well. You can make a lot of nice settings. Now, the player is the skin, if you will, or the frame that appears, that wraps around the e-learning course once it's inside the LMS. And what this screen lets me do is it lets me program what I want my skin or my frame to look like, or what they call the player. And here on the right-hand side, it shows me the results of my decisions. So, for example, I can add a resources link here, and there's the resources that pops up. And we do this sometimes on a blog. Here's a document to download. Here's a link you can check out. So we'll turn that off for now. We do encourage you to include an exit button. I've got that here. That way it's easier for your learner to close the course within the learning management system. You can add your company's logo. You can add a picture of the presenter, and both of those would appear here if I added those. There are different things about, do you want a volume, do you want to give them a play button, and so on. Here's where you can further manage the menu, which we would see here. You can specify, if you do say I want to add resources, you can add the resources here. There are colors, and I think I've mentioned this already. They have a lot of tools to help you, if you don't have graphics background or graphic skills, make these things look better. Again, you can set all sorts of different color schemes here, which is nice as well. So I'm going to close that. And I could preview, and I think we've got the hang of that. I've previewed twice already. If I was doing this for the real world, though, if this is going to go on a blog or if I was going to assign it to employees, I would preview once again. So it's always good to be safe, better safe than sorry. But we're going to advance and publish. I'm going to hit this publish button, and this is what's going to create your e-learning course, is when you publish. I'm creating an e-learning course, as we saw at the beginning of this presentation, because I want to put it in an LMS. So ask me what's your goal, where are you putting this into? And I'm going to put it into an LMS. And I can make some settings here. And the ones I want to call to your attention in particular are down at the bottom. So how is it going to communicate with your LMS? There are different, just as in digital photos, there are different file types, JPEG, bitmap, PNG, and so on. E-learning courses have a similar idea. And they're listed here: SCORM 1.2, SCORM 2004, AICC, and this new thing called Tin Can API, or it's called Experience API as well. The industry standard is SCORM 1.2, and we're going to stick with that. And then reporting and tracking. How do you want to pass information from the e-learning course to the LMS, letting the LMS know if the person's done or not done? So here for reporting, what I'm really interested in is reporting the learner's status to the LMS when as they've gone through the e-learning course. And there's some options here. Well, the person's passed or incomplete. They have passed or they have failed. They have completed or they are still incomplete, and they completed and failed. And this is an e-learning course for compliance, and I want to know if people have done it, and I want to see if they passed my test, my quiz, which we created, and we set a passing score. So I'm going to go with pass, failed here. And then tracking. So if reporting is tell the LMS if somebody has passed or failed, tracking is determining what it means to pass or fail. So this first option here would allow me to say, oh, a learner could be passed if they've gone to 9 out of 9 screens. And there might be cases where that's a perfectly valid selection. But this is a compliance course. I've created a quiz. I want to know if people pass the quiz. I set a passing score, so I'm going to say use quiz results. And I could have created one or more quiz, in which case I'd specify which quiz would be the one that's tracked. We're going to hit OK here, and we're going to hit Publish here. And this could take a little bit of time too. JP, are there any questions from the audience out there?
Well, yeah, actually there's one, and I think you touched on it, but just to clarify, with the player properties, are the design options, are they flexible enough that you can really mimic the design of your PowerPoint pretty closely?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have no problem with that at all. There's plenty of flexibility on that.
Okay.
Other questions?
Yeah, could you also explain some of the other publishing options that are there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we're here in this Publish window, and I said I want to publish for a learning management system. You see there are different options. So while we're publishing here, the first option is for web, and if this means I want this thing to be displayed on the internet on a web page. If I click web, what it does is it creates a Flash file. And if you go to the Convergence Training blog and look at any of the various courses that we have there that you can just watch live from a various blog page, you'll see that that's what we've done. So we published for web. It creates a Flash file, and then JP, not I, but JP does whatever HTML wizardry he does to make sure the Flash file displays correctly within our HTML web page. So that's the web option. Articulate Online is for publishing so that it will work with Articulate's own LMS. LMS is obviously what we're doing. Any LMS out there, including the Convergence Training LMS. CD would create your own little executable file. So you could create an executable file, burn it onto a CD-ROM, take that CD-ROM to a remote worksite, pop it into somebody's computer, and they can take the training that way. And this is actually new to me, Word. I never knew what this was for until recently. But it's a cool tool, actually. So if I publish to Word, what it's going to do is it's going to take this PowerPoint, and it's going to create it in a Word document, one screen per page. But it also takes that engaged interaction and that quiz, and it displays that one slide per page or one question per page. I can then use this to create a storyboard. If I'm collaborating with maybe a subject matter expert and a graphic designer, I could pass that storyboard out. They could use it to review my materials. They can use it to write notes about revisions and send it back. So it's really kind of a nice tool to have. I see our publish is going slow here. Hopefully that'll finish soon. If not, we have a backup option. But any other questions in the hopes that this publish continues?
Yeah,
JP?
yeah. I have a couple more. One about Flash and what version of Flash does it publish to? Do you know?
I have no idea. That's something that's covered. Let me since we have a little time here, let me quickly bounce over. If I go to Articulate's website here, I know that a related question is above and beyond Flash is that you can publish to HTML5, which is really what the world is moving to. And so that was one of the things when I was publishing. It said, do you want to include HTML5 output? And generally, I would say from moving forward, you do, because Flash is going to get left behind at some point for reasons I don't fully understand. Microsoft and Apple choosing not to play nicely together. But if you go to Articulate website and go to the eLearning community or their support tab, they have a ton of detailed answers to those kind of questions. So I apologize, I don't know that answer. I don't work for Articulate. But I think the real important thing is less so what version of Flash, but the inclusion of HTML5, which is going to become increasingly important in the future.
Great.
All right, so Any other questions? Maybe take one more and we'll see what's going on with this publishing. Just proving all software can be quirky. This publishing is taking a while. I'm not seeing any status updates, so I apologize for that to everybody. But JP, other questions?
Yeah, there's a few more. Well, we can take one now and then maybe jump ahead here. Are QuizMaker and Engage files saved within the PowerPoint, or are they saved as separate files?
They're actually saved. That's a really good question, and fortunately I know this answer. So the quiz that I created is saved as a separate file, and I can later integrate that quiz into other presentations. And the same is true that the Engage interaction is saved as a separate file. And then in addition to that, you create a presentation, articulate presentation, that includes all of the screens you started with in PowerPoint, plus the embedded quiz and the embedded interaction. So you'll now have a presenter file, which is kind of like PowerPoint and kind of like presenter, because those two are kind of the same thing. And then when I publish, which I'm trying to do now, but having a little trouble, it will create a folder for me of my published material. And so you end up with four things, I guess. A file for the quiz, a file for the interaction, a file that represents the PowerPoint / presenter presentation, and then your output, which is your e-learning course, which originally comes in a folder, and then you zip that folder. And if it's okay with you, JP, it looks like we're having a little quirky behavior with Articulate's publishing. I apologize to the audience for that, and this is not necessarily a knock on Articulate's product. I don't typically have this problem, but it just doesn't seem to be publishing. So if it's all right, I'd like to just go ahead and advance. I have already created this course, and I'll show you how I put it into a learning management system. So what I'm going to do, I was going to, as a reminder, you're going to publish. It's going to say, congratulations, you're done. And at that point, you're going to get option, there's a little button to zip your folder. And you always want to zip your folder because that's what you're going to import. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to go off script here. This is my computer. And in my documents and my Articulate projects, I have a zipped folder right here. So here's that Engage. Here's a quiz I created to the other question, and I got a file for that, and here's my interaction. And here's the published output I had created earlier for Crane hand signals. And what I was going to do is publish something as Crane hand signals 1. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to rename this so you'll see that I import something new into the learning management system. Okay. And now I've got Crane hand signals 1. And so now I'm going to bounce over to my learning management system, which is here. And if before, at the beginning of this webinar, we had our learner hat on and we were seeing Jeff Delto's learner experience, I'm going to go to the administration tab. We're going to put our administration hat on, and I'll show you how administrators do things. Most of your employees would not have this ability to go to the administrative powers and exercise these powers. All right. So I want to import that zip folder into my learning management system. So we'll hit Content, Import, and Creation. And I'm going to click Import Wizard here. And this is a simple little 4-step process. And I'm just going to import a computer-based training activity. It's telling me right here, SCORM 1.2 in a zip folder. So we saw the setting for SCORM 1.2. And because the publish process didn't seem to work there, we could not see the zip folder, but I told you about it. Remember to zip your folder. We're going to say, yeah, that's what I want to do. And now I'm going to go to my computer, and I'll go to my documents. I'll go to my Articulate projects, and I'll scroll down to find that zip folder we talked about earlier. Here it is, Crane Hand Signals 1. And this is a 15-minute course. And my zip folder is some behind-the-scenes settings here for the learning management system that aren't super relevant for the broader audience. And okay, now I'm going to import that material. JP, any more questions?
Yeah, you're importing an e-learning course. Can you touch on the other import options there?
Sure. So for the broader audience, what can you import is going to be determined by which LMS you have. So this is the Convergence Enterprise LMS, and you can pretty much import anything. You can import PowerPoints, PDFs, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets. You can import video files and audio files, recorded webinars. Obviously, we're importing e-learning courses. We saw you can do that in multiple formats. SCORM, AICC, Tin Can. Now, other LMSs are going to work differently. Some LMS providers don't even allow their customers to import. Or if they do, they limit what you can import. So I would be careful. In the case where like you can't import your own materials, I guess you have to send your files to your LMS provider and they import. And they might restrict the kind of things that are going to allow you to import. So frankly, if I was looking to buy a new LMS, that's something I would look into is, can I import my own materials and what can I import? All right, so speaking of importing, our import is complete. And I'm going to go ahead, if our goal obviously is to assign this to some part of our workforce, I'll show you how to assign this to get to where we started. And again, this is probably true. What we're showing you is true of most every LMS. Step 1, 2, and 3 allow me to select the training that I want to assign, who I'm trying to assign it to, and set some dates for my assignment. So we'll click this button. And it's giving me a list of what it calls qualifications, which would be all the activities, in this case, necessary for a job, to be a crane operator, or machine operator, or a truck driver. But we just want a single activity. It was that e-learning course that we just pulled in to the LMS. So let me go down and find crane hand signals 1. Now, earlier I had already created and imported crane hand signals. So here's crane hand signals 1. And now it's going to ask me who needs the training, who am I trying to assign this to. And I can select different individual users, or I can select different parts of my organization, a given department or the whole site. But I created a custom crane safety training group and put some people in there. So I'll select them. And now I can set some dates. And the dates I want to call out in particular are the start date, when will this appear in the training tab, and the due date. And I set that up so there was not a due date earlier, but there will be now. So we'll select the end of the month. We'll hit save, and we'll see where that due date's coming from in just a moment. Okay, that was quick. The assignment's been made. Now if we take off our admin hat and put back on our learner hat, our employee hat, I'll go to the training tab, and I see I've now been assigned 2 activities. Now the first activity, crane hand signals, remember I was in progress, 15 minutes long, and there was no due date. The second activity, crane hand signals 1, it's currently incomplete, not in progress, because I haven't started it at all. Still 15 minutes, but I've got a due date. So this due date is nice for me visually to know when I need to get it done. The learning management system actually can notify me if I'm approaching this due date, and someone like JP, my boss, could run reports to identify people who are past due or who are approaching due dates. You can even set up the LMS to identify, just automatically send out emails to department heads letting them know when their workers are approaching due dates. And then I would just launch this button, hit the launch button, and as we saw earlier, my e-learning course is going to open. And as a learner, I would go through the various steps. I would watch that slideshow that we created. I would take and hopefully pass the quiz. If I pass the quiz, I am considered complete. And at that point, I get in the LMS what's called a completion record. And someone like JP, again, could run a report to see if I'm done or not done. So that's our overview. I started off with a couple simple things, a PowerPoint, some images, and some articulate software. I stitched that all together. We made an interactive element, the slideshow, and a quiz. We set various properties, and then we published. We had a little hitch with the publishing, I'm sorry, but typically works. I can't explain why that did not work today, but you end up with a zip folder. And then you take that zip folder and you put it into your LMS, assign it to your workforce, and they view it and complete it. Thanks everybody for listening. JP, any additional questions out there I might be able to field?
Yeah, I got a couple here for you. One here about quizzes. Can we have more than one quiz in a course? And if so, can you track both?
You can. So I know the answer to one of those. You can have multiple quizzes in a course, and I've done that. You can see that at times on things that are available from the Convergence Training blog. But I'm pretty certain, I'm not going to give 100% certainty on this, but I'm pretty certain you're forced to select one quiz as the one that gets tracked. And if you notice, when I made that selection on a quiz maker, it asked me to select, or when I was publishing, I'm sorry, it asked me to select which quiz is going to be tracked. So I think the theory is if the learner is working through a presentation and they see a couple slides and then they get a practice quiz, a couple slides and a practice quiz, a couple slides, and then a quiz that's the one that gets tracked. And that's in fact how Convergence Training makes their courses for either retail courses or their custom courses. So I'm not 100% certain, but I'm 99.5% certain that you can only track one quiz. That's a good question.
I got a couple questions here about audio, and maybe I can kill two birds with one stone with this one question here. I want to get narrations from an outside source instead of recording them within Presenter. Can I do that? Where would I import the file?
Yeah, okay. I'll confess, I'm going to close this window. I happen to be in Presenter right now. And typically I do record a narration, so I'm going a little off script here, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer here. I'm going to hit record narration. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to hit record narration, which would be what this person doesn't want to do. But you see I can import audio. So if you have an external source for audio, maybe you're sending it out to a local professional, you could just get these small audio files, and then this import audio button right here, I knew it existed somewhere, would allow you to import audio for the selected screen you're on. So that would be the process for that. And you can also edit audio.
And can you maybe just go over those really quick? We have a broader question about how the audio and narration stuff works.
Do you want me to show you how to record audio?
Oh, maybe just click the record narration tab and see how it works.
Sure. So let's say I wanted to, here in this get ready to quiz yourself screen, if I wanted to add some audio narration, I would hit record narration. And it takes a second for this to open up. It's actually opening up on my other monitor. I'm going to drag it over. Here we go. And this opened up on my other monitor as well. I have to apologize. I have a two-monitor solution here. And the audio narration feature is opening on my other monitor. I can't drag it to the monitor you're seeing. Well, I tell you what. I think I know how to solve that problem. I'm going to show my other screen. Shifty, can you confirm that we're now seeing my other screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, so going off script here, everybody. But I've hit that record audio narration button, and I got my PowerPoint here, and I have a start recording button. And literally, it's no harder than this. So you could go off to Best Buy and buy a little $15 USB microphone. Well, we did and that works, but we found it wasn't the greatest quality by any means. We went to Amazon and we bought a microphone called the Snowball. I think it's by a company called Blue. And we got much better sound quality with that, and it was only like $60. Again, you just plug it into your computer with a USB. You hit this start recording button here and just talk in your microphone. The start recording button at that point changes to a stop recording button. And when you're done talking, you hit stop recording. You hit save and close, and that returns you to your PowerPoint presentation. Then you advance to the next screen and cycle through that process again. You hit audio narration, start recording, you talk, you hit stop recording, and you save and close. So hopefully that helps. I'm going to go back to my other screen there.
I've got another question here. If you do publish to Flash, can you still track and report scores?
No, one of the benefits of, there are many benefits really to an LMS. Being able to assign to different parts of your workplace, being able to deliver training remotely, and so being able to see who's done and not done, compare quiz scores from this year versus last year. But one of the clear benefits is this ability to track who's done and not done, and to track who did how well on a given assessment. Did they get 80%? Did they get 90%? And so that's one of the selling marks for a learning management system, and those other publishing options don't allow you that ability.
We're running up to the end of our time. time here, and I don't see any more questions. If we didn't properly answer the questions you had, feel free to email those in. But otherwise, I think we're about done here.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say thanks to everybody. Thanks to JP for doing all the background work. Thanks to all you guys for taking time out to listen to it. We hope you answered all your questions. Otherwise, we'll follow up with emails. And check out our blog, and good luck with this. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you again. We're going to be following up here with an email out to everybody with a link to the webinar, as well as a link to some of the articles on the subjects we covered today. If you have any questions about what we covered today, or any questions about our learning management system or our courses, you can email us at media@convergencetraining.com, or you can email Jeff at jdalto@convergencetraining.com, and also visit our website, convergencetraining.com, as well. So thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.